I imported these 10 rare plants all the way from Indonesia 10 weeks ago. Shiny leaves. Just have another little peek at the roots, and we've got some beautiful Monstera leaves. They're a little bit dry. There's a new leaf coming on the way. Uh-oh. Did I lose some roots there? And today I'm going to give you an update on how they've all been getting on, as well as give you some tips on what to look out for if you want to import rare plants from abroad. So this guy is the Philodendron Pink Princess Black Cherry. So this guy was on the struggle bus because they have lost a couple of leaves. So pretty much all the plants that did come from the package were suffering from either very brittle, fragile, dry roots, or a couple of them had a bit of root rot on the go as well. And that, to be honest, is to be expected when you're importing plants all the way from Indonesia and they come in that package for maybe a week or two, just sat there in the dark, not getting any moisture. They're wrapped in that moss, but it doesn't really keep the roots from drying out too much. So what I did when they all arrived, I put them in a vase of water overnight to hydrate all the roots, and then I repotted it into some soil. So I repotted this guy, the Philodendron Pink Princess, into Cybotanica's aroid mix. So it needs to be a nice chunky mix for aroids. Philodendron is a type of aroid, and that has helped with the recovery by making sure that the root ball has lots of air and it doesn't hold on to too much moisture when I water it. So I did lose a couple of leaves with this guy. It looks like it's in recovery because these bigger leaves are all the existing leaves that came when it arrived. And then this is the leaf that has grown since it's come. So it's pushed out a new leaf, so that's a good sign, but it is a lot smaller. So that suggests that it's in recovery. So I'm expecting maybe 2 or 3 leaves time for them to catch up to this size. But overall, a gorgeous plant that I'm happy with and not too bad a condition. It's in recovery mode. So this guy is the Monstera Albow White Tiger, which is looking pretty good, isn't it? So this guy was actually probably in the worst condition. The roots, well, they had serious root rot, to be honest. They pretty much all got stripped off. So I popped them into the water, the vase of water, and they just disintegrated more or less. So this plant has had to start from scratch. There was a couple of fibres of root tissue left. The main kind of taproot was still intact, but all the extra fibres that were coming off the taproot, they kind of just fell off. They were all black when they arrived. That resulted in it losing a leaf, which was this one there, that just cut off. The new leaf emerged and it just came out black basically. So I cut that off, but since then, that new leaf has pushed out. It's on its way to recovery basically. So let's just see if there's any roots out of the bottom actually. Ah, yes. So there you go. So it's recovered very nicely. I mean, look at that chunky root there. That's exactly what you want to see. Perfectly beige colour. So that's good. So I've not actually checked that since recording this video. So I did vow to myself that I'll never buy a Monstera Albow because of this situation here, where the white variegation of the leaf starts to go brown and die off. And that's quite common for a Monstera Albow because the white part hasn't got any chlorophyll, so it can't photosynthesize, so it just dies off, basically. So that's a common problem that you see. So if there's a big section of white variegation in a Monstera like that, chances are it will go brown and die off. But I'll persevere because it is a gorgeous looking plant. When I saw it on the internet and in videos on YouTube, I wasn't really enamoured with it that much, but seeing it in person, it does kind of tickle my fancy. So on here, on my fireplace mantle in my dining room, is the Anthurium silver blush that I received. And this is an absolutely stunning plant. Absolutely love it. Probably one of 2 of my favourite plants that I received. I do like them all, but this is in particular my favourite plant, along with another one. I just love the velvety texture of the leaves with the kind of silver blush veining, I guess. Not sure whether the camera's going to do it any justice, but it's absolutely gorgeous in real life. So this guy was struggling a little bit, to be honest. It did lose at least 1 leaf, maybe 2 leaves. They just went completely crispy brown and died off within probably the first week or 2. But it held on to, I believe, 2 or 3 leaves. I think that's the original leaf and that's the original leaf. That one is definitely new because it feels a little bit softer, it's hardening off, and I think that might be the new one as well. It's pushed out 2 gorgeous new leaves, so it is a happy plant, and as you can see, it's also flowering, or this weird fluorescent spike that they shoot off anthuriums. So I've cut this bad boy off so it can focus its energy on producing more and more leaves. The roots were okay, they were very dry, but they weren't black or anything like that. So I did pop it into the vase of water like I said, and then I repotted it the next day. Lost a couple of leaves, but it's since pushed out these brand new ones. Very happy plant. This guy is the Philodendron Melano or Melanocrisis variegated edition. So if you're a subscriber to the channel, then you'll know all about my struggles with the Philodendron Melanocrisis and how it hates to unfurl leaves in my house. So I was semi-horrified when I saw that they sent me this. Uh-oh, Philodendron Melanocrisis. But I jest, because it is a nice plant. Super, super fragile. I mean, the stem on that is so thin. And the leaves are really small, so it's a really young plant. Very young. And that's the leaf with the most variegation in, which is very nice. So, as usual with Philodendron Melanocrisis, the new leaves are not playing ball, they're coming out a bit deformed. Is that the latest leaf? That's not the latest leaf, that's the second to latest leaf. Came out a bit funny, didn't it? Did have some variegation, but it's come out all deformed. That's the latest leaf there, which has come out in one piece at least. But as far as I can see, there's very little or next to no variegation in that one. So I don't know whether this plant is losing its variegation. It is in a bright spot. If a plant is losing variegation, it normally means that it's struggling for a lack of light, but it is right on my windowsill, so that shouldn't be the issue. So yeah, I've got it, I put a little bit of, a little stick next to it to hold it up because it was flopping all over the place because it was such a thin stem growing these leaves. So hopefully it's going to thicken up. I might have to cut it back, propagate some of the leaves and the stems, and maybe that'll thicken it up a bit because it's a super young plant. And it did have problems with the roots, as with most of the plants that arrived. They were very fragile with some blackening on them as well. So they did have a bit of root rot. So they seem to have recovered, as you will see when I pull it out of the pot. It's got some new roots coming out, so that's good. So it's living in Cybertanica's aroid mix, nice chunky mix for an aroid plant like Philodendron, and it's recovering well. I just hope that the new leaves, any new leaves that come out now, will start to unfurl properly and the variegation comes back. This is the Monstera Castennum. Still don't know how to say that, I was struggling in the original unboxing video. But apparently I should just call it the Monstera Peru, so it's the same type of plant. But this is a variegated plant with a kind of yellowing variegation or beige variegation against the green leaves. Very, very glossy plant. You wouldn't believe it's a type of Monstera, but it is apparently. New to me. And to be honest, I'm waiting for this guy to do something because it's not really done anything since I got it. It had a long kind of leading vine that was not really doing anything. I think I was advised by someone to just cut it back so they can start regrowing these leaves. So that's what I did. I cut it back and I propagated one of the leaves anyway, which is losing the variegation. So I've got that in a little pot of perlite in this little pot. I put that on my windowsill, just waiting for that to grow roots. I'm sure it will. But yeah, this guy is not doing anything. It's not dying or anything. It looks perfectly happy. The leaves still feel nice and firm. Is there any roots coming out of the bottom? Yeah, there's roots coming out of the bottom. So that's good to see. So it is happy. They're the right colour coming out, so that's good. But no foliage growth so far, so I'm just waiting for a new stem to appear where I made the cut. It's got some area roots, so maybe I need to get that on a moss bowl. I know nothing about this plant. If you know something about this plant, then please leave it in the comments, because I don't know what to do with it. Should I put it on a moss bowl for it to climb up? Let me know. This guy is the Philodendron Whipple Way. I think I was calling it Ripple Way in the unboxing video. This is a Philodendron Ripple Way. But it's the Whipple Way. And this is one of my favourite plants that I've got because I just love the variegation in the leaves, the kind of minted green variegation. This is a Philodendron, so again, had some issues with some of the roots, very fragile, so I potted them into aroid mix, and it's really taken off, to be honest. I think it's pushed out 3 new leaves. I didn't lose any leaves, any of the original leaves, they're all fine. It's pushed out 3 new leaves, and that one is coming out quite big. So this plant is obviously very happy. It's pushing out a new leaf there as well. Looks like it's going to be a big one again in the middle. So there's no problems with this guy pushing out new leaves. Very healthy indeed. No blemishes, no browning, no yellowing on any of the leaves. So it recovered really well. And it's got some area roots shooting off. So I think the plan with this guy, I think I'm going to stick it on a moss pole because it's got area roots just begging to be put onto a moss pole for it to grow up something, because it's looking a little bit lanky already. So it does need some support. And so a good old moss pole will be just the ticket for this guy, I think. And it should grow up nice and tall and push out nice big leaves. I don't know whether the any fenestrations come with this plant or not, but a very handsome plant. I highly recommend it. The Philodendron Whippleway, not the Rippleway. So this guy here is the Anthurium Dark Mama. Not sure why it's called Dark Mama, but it's a very nice plant, very handsome. That's the latest leaf. But it was a plant that was on the struggle bus, to be honest, because the roots were quite dry. They weren't rotting. They were the right colour, nice and beige. So I did hydrate them and I potted them up into Cybotanica's Universal Soil Mix. And I did that and the leaves were starting to go a bit soft. Like they were taking on too much water or something, or they were just recovering, I guess. But thankfully, I didn't lose any leaves. So they're all the same leaves that came with the plant. They look a little bit beaten up, that one in particular, so that's probably going to go by the wayside. There's a little bit of browning there, but nothing too dramatic. But now that it's been recovering for the last 10 weeks, they're all nice and firm. That is the latest leaf. So that's a little bit lighter in colour. So it's just hardening off, that one. A little bit softer as well, but that'll harden off. It should go dark. I'm waiting for these leaves to go dark to match the name that it's been called. But just seeing if there's any new growth coming through. I don't think there is at the moment, but there are healthy, what looks like area roots in the crown of the plant. And there's this root here that's sprouted off. So that's a brand new root. So it's obviously very happy now in my home now that it's settled into its new environment. So I've put this under a grow light. So when I saw that the leaves were going a little bit soft, I popped it under a grow light, and that seems to have helped it enormously. And this bad boy is the Philodendron Florida Beauty. And it is a beauty. I think this is my favourite plant. One of 2 favourite plants that I got. I did like them all, but this is to me. Because I like the shape of the leaf, very unusual, and the variegation. So it's quite an interesting plant, the way it unfurls its leaves. It seems to do it in kind of sections. It's almost like it's doing 3 sections at a time that it's unfurling because of the weird shape of the leaves. So you don't really know whether it's going to come out in one piece, but it seems to do it fine eventually, unlike the Philodendron melanocrisis. But the latest leaf seems to have lost some variegation, or it's not variegated. But that seems to be the pattern for this plant maybe, because there's a couple of leaves that aren't variegated and a couple that are heavily variegated. So I don't know whether it's doing like a one non-variegated and then the next variegated. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. I don't know whether I should put this on a moss pole or not. Please help me out with that, because I've never owned a plant like this. Looks like there's some area roots growing out of the back of the stem. So whenever I see an area root growing out of the back of the stem, that means normally that it's right for a moss pole. So I want to put these plants on moss poles, but I didn't want to do that immediately because I wanted them to recover for a little bit in my house, to grow roots, grow new leaves, and then later on I'll put them through the ordeal of putting them on a moss pole. Let's just have a look if there's any roots at the bottom of this pot. I've not checked this actually in a while. So there's a couple just poking through. 3 or 4 poking through, so the roots are fine. It's in a chunky aroid mix, which is exactly what you want for a Philodendron. So this guy, it's unfurled. How many leaves is it unfurled? I think it's unfurled 2. That's the latest leaf, and it's done that one. So yeah, those 2 leaves is unfurled in my house. So it's a happy plant growing roots and foliage. It's absolutely stunning as well. Make sure that you watch this video next where I unbox a rare Monstera from Amazon of all places. The plant that I received in this video absolutely shook me to my very core, so make sure you check it out and I'll see you there.